So I married pretty young. I married my high school sweetheart, but neither one of us had a real understanding of what love was and how to really cultivate a healthy relationship. So it was a dysfunctional, tumultuous marriage. And I, after a tough decision, I had made a choice to walk away.
Are you a successful woman in leadership who's feeling unfulfilled in her career? Lately, you've been feeling disconnected and empty, and your job has you burnt out, stressed, and feeling uninspired. And you want more out of life, but you feel stuck and not sure how you should be making a bigger impact on the world. Well, I got a free gift for you. Go to queensformation.com/free gift and sign up for the free case study training where I give you the 4 steps you need to take to get in a position to have the power, confidence, and clarity to manifest your dreams, walk in purpose, and live a fulfilled life. Sign up today. Welcome to another episode of Becoming with Angelina Watkins, where we take dreamers and make them believers and doers. And I'm so excited about this episode that we have BreYanna. I can't wait to dig into this conversation with BreYanna. I am just amazed. Let me just kind of tell you a little bit about BreYanna. She is a published author, an inspirational speaker, a self-love mentor. That's what really got my attention. A writer and a poet. And so BreYanna studied education at North Carolina Central University. She attended Emerge Academy. It's a Christ-centered preparatory academy with a strong focus on guiding others who have a desire to mentor, to enhance their speaking skills. And so BreYanna is also a mentee under the great Les Brown and a part of his speaking legacy. So I can't wait to get into this and talk about all that you are doing. This is going to be so great. So BreYanna, tell the people a little bit about yourself. I mean, I know I gave them a little bit about your background of what you're doing, but kind of tell the people a little bit, who are you?
Hi, everyone. So who am I? I am all about self-love. I am quiet and shy, but I love really helping women win in every area of their life. I love to write. As she said, I'm a poet. I love to inspire other people. I love to motivate other people, and just so they can really see the greatness inside of them. And so self-love is the heartbeat of greatness. It is when we love ourselves that we are really able to see just how great we already are, and that we're able to then walk in our greatness. And so I love talking about self-love. I'm like an enthusiast about self-love. And because I know that it is so necessary for living our best life and really stepping into the greater things that God has for us.
Well, I don't even know where to start, but let's just go ahead and start there with the self-love and the mentoring of women, because I love that Becoming a Being is my company is all about, women empowerment, women loving themselves, women embracing who they are, women coming into what I say, their being, who God created them to be. And so to hear and talk to other women who are so much into having taken that journey and now they want to reach back. So I want to hear about your journey and how you got started and what made you get into saying, hey, you know what, I want to now give back now that I really know what it means to love myself, to understand myself, and really truly walk in my being. Just give me a little bit of your journey here. How did you decide that you wanted to mentor women in self-love?
So I married pretty young. I married my high school sweetheart, but neither one of us had a real understanding of what love was and how to really cultivate a healthy relationship. So it was a dysfunctional, tumultuous marriage. And after a tough decision, I had made a choice to walk away. But once I left the marriage, I didn't know anything about healing. I just knew I needed to be free. But once I left the marriage, I found myself in a cycle of unhealthy relationships after that, because my self-esteem was like non-existent. I didn't really know who I was. I just was out there really connecting, just in a mess. I call it the most unhealthiest, funnest time of my life because I had a good time, but I wasn't good for like I was just all over the place, mentally, emotionally. And so after just dealing with men that I felt I was giving myself to and just left feeling empty, like not feeling fulfilled, just like I knew this just it was more to life than settling for the scraps that I was allowing myself to receive. And so in 2014, I
Wait.
was just like, I'm tired. Oh,
Let me take you back. I'm sorry.
mm.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but let me just take you back just a little bit before you go to 2014. So, how long were you married?
So we were together 7 years, but we were married for 3.
For three. And so I heard you say that neither one of you knew or were ready for marriage. So I always like to ask, where did you get your ideology of what marriage was supposed to look like? Why were neither one of you ready for that?
So
Did you not learn how to build relationships? Did you not see it? Kind of tell me a little bit about that.
yeah, not really seeing what a healthy functional relationship looked like, what it means to be a wife to my husband, and the same for him. And so in my home, I grew up, my mom, she married later. She didn't marry my dad, but she married later to my stepfather. But even in their relationship, it wasn't dysfunctional, but it wasn't something to model, a relationship after. And and I got a lot of cues from music and TV and movies about that love was like toxicity. You stay, he cheat, you stay, you work through, because when you love a person, you don't give up, you don't leave them. So I had that mind frame that he could be a good man, and even though he might have cheated, long as he's good to you, stick it through. And so that's why I kind of got my ideologies like just stick it through, just stick it through. Love is just sticking it through no matter what. Until I realized that nah, it didn't feel good to my soul
It's funny
to
that you would
do
say
that.
music though, because just the other day, I promise you, just the other day, I was driving and a Whitney Houston song came on, the one where Saving All My Love for
Oh
You.
yeah.
And I said, you know what? She was teaching us that you need to be the side chick. Like I love me some Whitney Houston too, right? But when we get to listen to those lyrics and we're not really
Mm-hmm.
paying attention to what we're listening to, what we're taking in, and it's getting kind of in our subconscious mind. And I think you're that's so true that it begins to make us have these false ideas of what relationships are, and we don't really have that healthy relationship listening to music. So that's just funny because I was saying she taught us how to be side chicks. Who knew?
Yeah, I do that too now. Like when I go back and listen to some music, I'm like, you got me thinking like my life ain't complete without, certain things. And
Right.
but we at the time we don't have the awareness of it. We just listening to the music. But now that we are aware of certain things, now we are listening with a different type of ear. Like we're listening like, okay, song is catchy, but mm-mm.
Yeah. All right, now let's go back. You was going to tell us about 2014.
And so that year, I was just over it. Like, I was just over what I was doing to myself, like who I was dealing with. And at the time, I was doing really well. I was a teacher at the time. But so I had that going on professionally, but personally, I was just a mess. And I just cried out that one particular night in 2014, just was over it. And all I knew at the time, because I grew up in church, was just to like reach out to God, like go to God, like I want to be better, like I don't want to feel this way. I'm tired of this. And I had some real like moments with myself, having to hold myself accountable. Like, some of the choices you made, you're here because of you. And so it's just a lot that night crying. And then I just started like saying, you're more than a conqueror, speaking Bible scriptures over myself. And then that's when I really learned like, you need to treat you better. You need to treat you better. And then I started really tapping into what self love is because I knew nothing about it previously. I didn't know anything about, but I knew that I needed to love myself the way God loved me. And so from that day forward, I started on my journey.
So have you always been self-aware? Because you just talked about how you had to start holding yourself accountable, and it's we don't want to hold ourselves accountable, right? We don't want to the things that happen to us, the bad relationships we're in, we don't want to say that's our fault. That's their
Mhm.
fault. They didn't treat me right. So what made you say, I know I haven't received the best treatment or the relationships have been great, but now I got to sit back and see, what am I doing to contribute to that? Like, how did that happen? Have you always been that type of person, or did it just kind of be a epiphany?
Yeah, I've always kind of been able to own some things that I that I do. So never was one person to like act like it was never me. I was always able to own my behaviors and certain things. And so always had a lot of wisdom, even as a child. It's just that sometimes I wasn't walking in that wisdom. And so when I had that moment that, it's just kind of just, that's always who I was. And just really, I guess, coming back to who I always was. Just, I was letting that person go to the wayside by participating in things that didn't serve me. So yeah, I've always been a person that will own my stuff.
Well,
own my
how did you go from knowing the wisdom and not walking in it to saying I'm going to walk in it? What did that look like? Like, what was your mind, and what did that transition look like to say, you know what, I've been learning this, let me try it, let me implement it, let me do something. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I was just tired. Like, I was having sex with men, getting up, feeling empty, feeling like I was just tired of like life at that moment. I was just like, you're really living this way? You're really living this way. And I was just over, requiring, I was giving so much and requiring so little of from people. And I was just over it. I knew like, Brownie, you just left something that wasn't fulfilling, and you put yourself right back into things that were not fulfilling. And I just wanted something different for myself, because I was just gonna be in that same cycle if I didn't. Like, I wanted change. That's what it was. I wanted to feel better. Ultimately, I was empty, and I wanted to know real love, like really feel that love. And so, yeah, I was over it. I was tired of my BS. I was over it. Yeah, I was
So when
over
you
it.
decided I'm over it, I'm done, I want to change, what did you do? What is the first thing that you did?
And so the first thing I did, like I said, I started really like praying, because that's all I knew. What I know now about self love and things that I've learned along the way, I knew nothing about that. I didn't even know anything about affirmations, none of that, like any of the stuff. I just knew, like, been taught that God loves me. And so that's who I knew to go to, because I couldn't go to anybody else at the moment. So just started really praying and things like that, and just speaking scriptures over myself. And that's just really how it started, really seeking after God, because that's all I grew up knowing. And that's the only person that I knew at the time who could help me, you know, who can really help me. And so that was the first thing I did, really just call out to God, and like, I'm tired, I'm over it. And yeah, that was the first thing I knew what to do. I knew nothing.
What did that do for you? What did reading the scriptures and praying over yourself, like, did it give you relief? Did it How did it help you?
So it made me, I started really thinking about what I've been taught, how God feels about me, been taught like, for God so loved the world. So it made me feel, okay, if God loves me this way, why am I not loving me this way? And if God says I'm more than a conqueror, if I can do all things, if I can do these things, that I have these powers and all, what I've been taught in church and all this, why am I not in that? Why am I not there? Why am I not feeling that? And so I started saying, well, if God loves me, God, show me how to love me. And then that's was like, you're the apple of God's eye. Okay, if I'm the apple of his eye, I need to be the apple of my eye. And so I just started just mirroring, he was like a mirror. So reflecting that back to me. So if God loves you this much, you love you this much. If, it was like asking God to reflect his love to me so I can be that. I don't know how to explain
Oh no,
if
I
it
think
makes
I
sense.
get it. I think I
If
get
it
it
makes
because for me, I think I mean, I can relate to you so much. So I'm like really enjoying this, and I hope you all out there are
sense.
enjoying this as well. But because when you're speaking, I think about, um, for me, I was born and raised in the church, and so I've heard a lot of things, but it was just routine for me,
Mhm.
and it's easy to regurgitate what you've learned, but there was like no meaning behind it for me. And so, yeah, I used to pray and I used to ask for strength and all these things, but it really wasn't doing anything for me until one day I had said, you know what? Let me really try it and see, does this work what they say? And I remember opening up the Bible and I said, I'm just going to read the first chapter or whatever it is that I open it up to. And when I opened it up, it's like I'm reading and I'm getting a totally different understanding of who God is and who he created me to be and that he had a plan for my life. And it's like the light bulb went off in my head.
Mhm.
And then from that point forward, it was just different from me. I felt different because I felt like I had a reason to be here. Now I had to find that reason I needed to be
Mhm.
here, but I knew there was a reason to be here. And so that was kind of one of those things that God has a plan for my life. So I want to go and find that plan. So I I'm
Mhm.
totally understanding where you're going here. I
Yeah,
love
and
it.
one night my mom was staying over, and I remember I was sleeping and I felt like in my spirit God was like, get up and read, Matthew 5:16. And so I go to it and it's like, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. And I go into the other room, I'm like, Mom, like God woke me, look at this. And she like, BreYanna, gotta do that sometimes. But it was a new thing for me, like you were saying, you go to church, but it was a new thing for me, like a new relationship for me. And that's when I knew too that it was something more than what I was settling for. So that also helped me like, you got to get out of that. You got to get out of that. So yeah, that was the scripture that I live by that also changed me to know you got a light and you ain't gonna be able to keep turn you ain't gonna be able to turn that light on selling for them scraps and just not let that light so shine. But you gotta do better. You gotta show up for yourself and things like that. And so it was the relationship, my spirituality, that was the catalyst.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I just want to go back for just a moment though, because you have said that after your divorce, you went from one failed relationship to another failed relationship. You were settling. So, what made you leave the marriage? I know you said that both of you weren't really ready. Y'all didn't know what a healthy relationship was, but there was something in you that said, and you left, right? So,
Mhm.
what was going on that you said, and you left? But even when you said, to the marriage, you didn't automatically keep saying
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So yeah, and that's so I left the marriage because there was a lot of infidelity and I just couldn't do it anymore. I was growing cold towards him. My heart was cold towards him, and I wasn't going to be any good for him either because I was going to continue to walk in this place where I didn't like him. I didn't like you. Yeah, I might have loved you, but I didn't like you. And it took a long time. I think a lot of people think like it's an easy decision. It took a long time for me to get there because I didn't want to be a black single mom. That's the truth. I did it right. Married, I didn't want to be a black single mom. That wasn't ideal for me. That's not how I planned it. Then I was so afraid that God wouldn't forgive me if I divorced. Then I was worried about what people would say. And so it took a long time for me to get to the decision. And I just didn't want to live that way. I just didn't want to keep being cheated on because it was like a cycle. Like we was just in a cycle and he would cheat, I would be cold, I'm cold. So it just was. And so I knew to leave that, but I feel like the reason I couldn't keep saying no is because I left the relationship knowing I needed to leave that, but somehow my self-esteem was still low and I was still attracting unhealthy relationships because I didn't know who I was, and I didn't know truly what I wanted. And those relationships helped. They were surface relationships. So in a way, I didn't no longer have to be vulnerable with them.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't hurt me, but they did hurt me. But it was a surface kind of thing too. And I felt like I was empowered too. At the time, I felt like I was the empowered woman because I'm like, oh, I can dispose of him when I want. I don't know. Like I said, it was the fun, unhealthiest time in my life. I can't even understand my rationality with some of the things I was doing then. I think, if I get to it, yeah, it was because I didn't know who I was, and my self esteem was just non-existent. So I was existing, but I wasn't making wise decisions.
I love it. Because I refer to that in my coaching program. There's existing and then there's being. And in
Mhm.
existing is, you're just taking life for whatever comes your way. You're not really making the decisions for yourself. You're just playing the hand that's dealt to you. You're getting comfortable, right? And you're not moving in the ways that you should be moving versus being. You have that meaning and you're making moves for yourself. You're making decisions for yourself. So I love it that you're using these words. And you all, this is the first time we've really
Yeah.
talked. And so, I mean, it's amazing to me, because then that's when I know, like, when other folks are using the same things that I know that God has given to me, that, God gave it to me because he gave it to them as well. But I want to ask you, what do you say to that person who's looking at you that says, well, how did you not know what you wanted? And how did you not know yourself when you went to college? You were a teacher, you were doing some things. So how can you not know yourself? Because to know yourself is to have some goals and to go after some things. And so what do you say to that person who's not really understanding how you can go to school, get an education, start your career, but sit here and say at that time you didn't know who you were?
That's a good question. I think sometimes that's just what we're known to do. We're taught to do, right? It doesn't matter if I know who I am at the core. If you've been taught, go to school, get an education, you just take that on as the normal part of progression in life. And so I went to school and I wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't know truly what I wanted out of my life and like in relationships or etc. I just kind of follow societal expectations of what I needed to be. And so yeah, I went to school and I knew I wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't know who I was at the core. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. So I just really followed societal expectations and not really sitting and asking myself, what do you really want in life? If you can draw your picture, not what your mom said, not what your dad said, not what they say in the media or your friends, but what does life look like for you? And I never did that. I just followed, because I don't know if I would have went to school if I might have tapped into entrepreneurship a little bit earlier, but I went to school because that's what you do after, so that's what it is for me. It's like I just follow the natural progression of what you're supposed to do after high school. This is what you're supposed to do without really asking myself, is this what you want to do? Is this the life you want to live? And so
So tell us, how did you begin to discover who you were and what you were supposed to be doing? Because you were a teacher, but now you are an author, you're a poet, you are a mentor, you're a writer, you're an inspirational speaker. And so in there, where did we transition from, and how did you know you were supposed to transition from being a teacher to all these other things that you're doing now? Tell us how
so
that.
it's amazing because when I know I wanted to be a teacher, and that's what it was revealed to me, that teaching is not limited to the four walls of a classroom. So I'm still a teacher.
Oh,
I still teach.
I
That's what
love
I
it.
do. That's who I am. It's the teaching part of me, wanting to expand people's perspective, wanting to open people up, wanting to teach them new ways and new things. And so I knew I always wanted to teach. And then when I was a teacher, um, someone gifted me a journal, and which brought me back to writing poetry. So then once I started writing poetry, I ended up publishing my first book, which was a poetry book. And then I remembered the love of writing that I had, because when I was in high school, I did write poetry in a notebook. But, when life happened, you get away from that. So it brought me back to my love of poetry. So I wrote the poems, published a book. And then in the midst of doing that, that's when, because that was in 2014, before I published a poetry book, before I had this come to, moment with recognizing my journey. So I published that book first. And then later that year, that's when I had the moments and I recognized I wasn't living the way I was. So then I was like, I can't be the only woman that feels like this, that feels like she turned her back on herself, that she's just not having the relationship she wants. Her self-esteem, I can't be the only woman. So I just start writing like little notes and things that have come, like little downloads that I call, that would come to me in little nuggets of wisdom. And so I just write it down. And then after writing that down, I was like, oh, this could be a book. This can be a book. And so I said, okay, this was for me and my healing, but it can help somebody else in their healing. And so from there, I wrote the book. And then I was like, okay, well, a teacher can be a speaker. So I can teach and speak. It's the same thing. I'm just doing it a different way. And so then I'm like, well, yeah, I want to speak to other people, speaking, and teaching them as I speak. And then from there is mentoring came last. But I'm like, there's so many women that need mentorship, because I know I do. And it's something about having somebody holding you accountable as well, and somebody that can truly help you see where you are at point A and to really help you visualize how you can get to point B. So it all started with that poetry book, but really knowing that I am a teacher, but it doesn't have to be in the four walls of a classroom. So I
So,
left that, and then here I am today.
so you mentioned something about getting help. So did you have a coach? Did you have a mentor? How did you get through? Did you do this by yourself, or did you eventually have to get some help from someone to help you on your journey?
Yeah, so initially, for maybe about, because it's been 2014, so maybe about 3 or 4 years, it was just me doing my own like research and stuff, and figuring out different ways of healing, what that looks like, how to unlearn things. And then I ended up going to therapy, and then also seeking out business mentors. But what I realized, the business mentors also help you with personal development. I thought it was just like business mentor, but they get you together too, which has helped me as well. So yeah, I went to therapy, and then maybe 3 or 4 years after me doing it on my own, I saw a mentor that can really help me and guide me along the way.
So what is the biggest thing that you had to unlearn that was kind of like really difficult to let go of, but you knew you had to let go if you wanted to become who you are today?
The biggest thing to let go of is perfection. Like
Ah,
that, you're not going to be perfect, because when I first started, I was trying to show up even in motherhood. I had to, like, I was trying to be this perfect mom. Like, you got to be when you show up on your platform, be this perfect. And it wasn't allowing me to be authentic. And I had to let that go, because you want things to be right. I want things to be this. And so I had to just say, it's not perfection, BreYanna. It's progression. People are not trying to see a person that's a robot. Your children don't need this mom that's perfect. They just want you to simply be. And so letting go of being perfect, even today, sometimes you want to get your things together. You like, gotta be perfect, this, gotta this. But then that's when I had to unlearn, just show up in who you are. And so that's been really, really letting go of the need to have things perfect and be perfect.
how do you do that though? Because there, talk to the ladies out there, because there's a lot of us who are perfectionists, and that perfectionism holds us back. It keeps us from moving. It keeps us stuck. It keeps us in fear of what are people going to say? What are people going to do? And so there's a lot of them out there. Tell us, what do you do to unbecome being a perfectionist?
So you have to, number one, understand that everything is not going to be perfect. accept that everything is not, and you not being perfect does not mean that you're not great. It doesn't mean that you're a failure either if things are not perfect. So coming to acceptance that everything is not going to be perfect, you can still do your best, and it can still be a good thing that you're doing. It could be in excellence, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be perfect. And I think it's really stepping from perfection to really being authentic. When you authentically you allow yourself to be imperfect, to know that I make mistakes, y'all. Yeah, y'all was crying the other day, or yeah, I'm gonna put this out here for y'all. I know that may look like this, but just being authentic, because that's what I realized, that you really have the better experiences with people in your authenticity and not in being perfect. Because something about being authentic, when you let go of perfection, just say, y'all, this is me. Yeah, sometimes my hair be all over my head. Sometimes, no, I don't always eat breakfast, every day. Sometimes y'all forget to meditate that morning. Or when you're just authentic and you just know who you are, you're just like, okay, I'm gonna show up. Yeah, I'm gonna do it in excellence, but I'm not gonna worry about if I have to dot every I or cross every T, because I know if I'm just showing up myself whole, I'm gonna be well received, and I'm gonna feel better, because then I'm not trying to act one way. I'm simply being, if that makes
It does
sense.
make sense. And so I just want to say, what would you tell that person who's really struggling? Because in the world we live in today with social media,
Mhm.
where you've got all of these celebrities and these influencers who look like they are perfect. Everything's perfect. They're flawless. Their hair, their nails, their eyelashes, their makeup, their clothes, like they look like they just got it going on. And we all know, you and I know, behind closed doors, their life is totally different than what they put on social media. But we have a lot of people out there who just can't see past the fact that everything is not perfect, and these people that you're watching are not perfect, and you're striving to be something that's just not realistic. So how do you get them to say, stop thinking about what other people are doing and saying? Because you mentioned in your journey, you had to stop worrying about what other people were going to say and what other people think. Tell us, how did you do that? How did you change your mindset to be like, you know what? Forget you, forget what you think, forget what you say. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be like, how did you do that mentally and emotionally? Were you able to make that shift?
So I realized that the more, like, if I continue to move based upon what people think, then they really have a lot of power over my life. Then So it shifted when my mindset shifted when I said I'm no longer going to give people power over the way I am, the way I look, and the way I live. And it drew me back to that, like I said, the authenticity with saying, who are you? How do you want to show up? Because yeah, they may be showing up this way, and there may be something you aspire to be, but you have to also know that this is just what they're deciding to put out there. And it's not always rainbows and butterflies. And when you compare yourself, you really do steal your own joy, because then you feel like you're not measuring up, because you're comparing yourself to somebody and you don't know what they've been through. You can be on year 2 in your journey, they've on year 20, but you don't know how far they come, because it looked like it's overnight, or it looks like this. And so I always say, water your own grass, you know, water your own grass. Really, really cultivate that interpersonal relationship with you. And yeah, you can come, oh yeah, they grass look nice. That's yeah, but I know I need to just water my own, because when you focus on yourself, you and tune out what people say, you need to be this, you need to do this, you got to do this, and really say, this is what I want to be, this is who I'm going to be. It takes work now, because it's easy to see and see their grass is greener, but when you just sit with yourself and come back and say, I want to be authentically me, I want to design a life that works for me, I want to design a life that is meaningful. And it may not be full of the big houses and this, but it may be. But I think we just have to focus on ourselves and know who we are, and know that it may look perfect, but nothing is perfect. It may be hard work, or It could be a facade or it could be any, whatever it is. Try not to focus there and try to really focus on you, your grass.
So tell us, for you, what does feeling the being empowered do for you? How has that changed your life to now feel like you are empowered and in control of your own life?
Because I empower means that I'm living life on my terms and the way I want to design it. And it's about knowing your identity, even when it comes to houses you live in, cars you drive. What I don't care to have a 18-bedroom mansion. I don't care to have that. I don't mind a 5-bedroom. And it's little things that I realized along the way that I've been told that I need, or I've been told success looks like. And I get empowered when I say, no, that's success for you. This is what success looks like for me. I get empowered when I say, no, beauty looks that way for you. This is how my beauty looks for me. And so when I started to realize what I am in my own identity, I became empowered. Like, no, you don't have to dress like that. Or no, you don't have to talk like that. No, you don't have to drive that car to show someone that you are a success. No, you don't have to do this or do certain things. I just had to let go of that no longer serve. So that's how I got my power. Like, girl, just love yourself. Like, even like with my beauty, like having a gap. I'm like, girl, don't nobody care what people say about your gap. I felt empowered by saying, I love this gap, and smiling and not really conforming to the ideologies of other people, but saying, really knowing what I wanted in this life and knowing what success looked like, and just taking control of my life and saying, this is what it looks like for BreYanna. This is how BreYanna wants to show up. This is how I want to live. And this is how I want to be. And so that's where the power came from, saying, I'm not about to let other people control how I live, control how I see myself, control. No, because they've done it for so long, from childhood and everything. We've been taught who to be. And so I said, no, I'm going to be who I am. And so
And so
that's
who
how I
are
got
you?
that.
Who are you? Who are you in your being? Who would is BreYanna saying she is today?
So I'm sensitive. I am a crier. I cry and I make no apologies for it. I love being a mother. I love reading. I read. Oh my God. I have a library full of books. Reading is something that's dear to my heart. I love writing. I love being alone. I love my solitude. I love being alone and just in my own thoughts. I love traveling. I love seeing the world. That means a lot to me. That's the one thing I just love to do over shopping, things like that. I am a support to other women. Yeah,
What's been your most
I,
favorite place that you've gone so far?
so my most favorite place that I've gone was to the Bahamas.
Okay.
Yeah,
Why the Bahamas? Did
because
BreYanna
the
get her
yeah.
groove back?
No, I like the Bahamas because that was the first time that I realized that sand was different. It's like, this sand feels like powder. It's not gritty.
The little
And it's
things.
just, yeah. I'm like, wow. And then just in the different cultures and the opportunity to learn and to see that people do live differently. And so it was just a unique experience. And then I was able to bring my daughters, we all went as a family. And so, yeah, it was that like, wow, this sand is different. So when I go other places, now I'm like, I got to go somewhere and see black sand. And like, now, like all this. And so, yeah.
What book are you reading now? You said
So
you
I'm
love to
reading
read books.
by Dennis Waitley, The Psychology of Winning.
Okay. And what can you tell us about the psychology of winning?
So I just started.
Okay.
So I just finished Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And
Hmm.
so now I'm just getting started on Dennis
And
Waitley.
what's the
But
power of now?
it's by Eckhart Tolle. So it
No,
really,
tell us, what is
oh,
the
what
power
is
of now?
okay? So I love the book because it reminds us that pretty much it says the future doesn't exist, nor does the past. Everything happens in the now, and we really hurt ourselves by trying to be futuristic and trying to live in the past, that we now allowing ourselves to rest in this time. Even in the book, he has a mention that say, don't worry about the fruit. Focus on the action. So many of us are focused on when I'm arrived there, when I'm gonna get married, or when I'm gonna make all this money, or when, that we're not even just enjoying the action, the being being in the present moment. And so I had issues with like anxiety, like going future. And that book has helped me to say, breathe for a moment, and all you have is the now. So rest in the now. And so it's a very spiritual book. In the book, he talks about self-love. He talks about, well, in the book, he tells us that we don't need to love ourselves, but that's something there. But what I got from the book is, and I really love that part where he said, focus on the action and not the fruit, and that the past and the future does not exist. And so and that helps me say, you're right. I'm no longer living in the past, and the future has not even happened. So all I do have is the now.
So one of my last questions that I want to ask you before we begin to wrap this up is about purpose, right? Because you've gone on this journey. You've figured out who you are. You've taken power over your life. You've planned out your life and designed it the way you want it to be, and you are enjoying it. But your purpose, I want you to tell us, when did you get that epiphany of what your purpose is? Tell us what you feel like God has called you to do. Exactly what has he called you to do? And when did you realize, on your journey, that this is it? Because you talked about going from being a teacher, and you remember how you used to do poetry and loving writing. And so, and teaching. But when you talk about your purpose, when did you know that you knew that you knew this is what God called me to do?
So it was after the second book, Fall in Love with Yourself. As I said prior, he had told me that I needed to be a light. That was the revelation, God, let your light so shine. So I knew that I had purpose and to be a light. But it was after writing Fall in Love with Yourself that I knew that I really wanted to teach women about self-love, because I knew that if we loved ourselves, we'll show up differently, and our relationships will be different. So after that book is when I knew that was my purpose here, to really help women tap into who they are, to learn to love themselves so they can really live a healthy, happy, and whole life. And so I'm purpose here to really teach them to get back to them, pretty much get back to them, to love themselves.
And tell us a little bit about your program. What's the name of your program, and what do you do if a woman wanted to come to your program? What would you do with her, and what would you tell her?
So the program is called the Art of Falling in Love with Yourself. And we in the program we talk about your healing. It's a framework. So it's a 12-week framework, and we start off by really acknowledging where you are today and where you want to be. Then from there, we talk about your spiritual walk, healing, really getting deep and down and dirty with healing, what that looks like, what that feels like. Then we go on to do some self-esteem building, some confidence building. Then we go to what a lot of people don't often do, but we talk about the physical, because that's something that affects a lot of women's self-esteem, how they look physically. And so we dive deep in that for you to come to an acceptance of who you are physically. And then from there, we work towards building and cultivating healthy relationships with self and with those around you.
So what type of woman do you work with? Do you work with any kind of woman? Do you work with a particular type of woman?
So the program is geared to more so professional women who, because often, like I realized being a teacher, that we could be a public success but a private mess. And oftentimes a lot of women who are professional and successful are so afraid to even admit that they are struggling with their self-esteem, because it doesn't appeal to, to other people. Oh, you're so successful. Your self-esteem low, you this, so they are ashamed. And so that's what the program is about, so that they can truly win professionally and personally.
So this is interesting. I gotta ask. So we got these professional women. I'm assuming when we say professional that we've gotten some level of education, whether it's a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. We're excelling in our career, we're doing really well, but we have self-esteem issues. how does one get that far up with self-esteem issues? Because you got it going on. It's, so you would think, right? You're educated, right? You're setting some goals and you're getting some level of success. So why would you not be proud of yourself or confident in yourself and what you can do if you've gotten this far? So what is it that you're seeing as to the root as to why a lot of these professional women have self-esteem issues?
Yeah, because oftentimes a lot of them have self-esteem issues because that's where they place their happiness. That's where they place their worth in the money or in the accolades, in their degree. And a lot of times they're chasing after that and not really connecting with who they are. So it's that fine. Yeah, they forget that those things are an extension of who they are and that there's more to them. And so a lot of them don't feel complete. They don't feel whole when they're like, I have these things, but there's something missing. And it's because they're not connected with self. They've done all those things either because family told them or because they wanted to. But now it's amazing because how I like to say it is you could be highly intelligent in your business or get a degree, but you can really be, you don't have the emotional intelligence that is needed to really cultivate healthy relationships and to also be have the self-awareness about yourself. So that's what it usually sometimes they have the cognitive part, they're intelligent that way, but emotionally they're not intelligent. They really lack it. So that's
Can
why
you
they can
explain
have the
that? Explain that emotional intelligence. What is emotional intelligence? Um, and what are they lacking when you say emotional intelligence?
that's good. So what they're lacking is sometimes they're lacking accountability, awareness of self. Sometimes when they do have the degrees and the level of education, sometimes they are unaware of the behaviors that they display around people or in their relationships because they think that who they are is rooted in their degrees and things like that. So they don't have the awareness of self. And so when you are emotionally intelligent, you operate in accountability, you're able to regulate your emotions, you're able to be self-aware that actually allows you to go inward to make significant changes in the way you show up in your emotional connections with other people. And that's what I've seen research to show that they don't have solid emotional connections with those around them, especially in romantic partnerships.
So tell the listening audience out there, where can they find you here on social media, YouTube, Facebook?
Yes, they can find me on Facebook and Instagram at BreYanna Mitriece.
All righty. And so before we go, I got one last question I like to ask all of my guests is I want you to tell me, what would the BreYanna of today tell the BreYanna who was 16? What
I would
words
tell
of
her,
wisdom would you give her?
I would tell her to live your life. Don't go chasing that boy and going to the college near where he is. Go to the college you ultimately wanted to go to. And I would say that you don't have to rush in love. Enjoy your life for a little bit. Really get to know who you are so that you can be good. You could be well when you get into your relationship. But yeah, don't go chasing after that boy. Go, you should have went to Winston-Salem State, the
So,
college you wanted to go to.
do you have regrets, or do you look back on this and say, you know what, I know I may not have made the best choices, but if I wouldn't have made those choices, I wouldn't be who I am today?
Yeah, the latter. Yeah, I look back and I laugh because now I use it as an opportunity to teach my girls, from what I've learned. And so, no, everything that happened needed to happen because, yeah, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have done a lot of the inner work and the healing that is necessary to be who I am today. So I have no regrets. Everything happened for a reason. I have my beautiful daughters because of it. As me and my ex-husband are great co-parents. We are still family. We have learned how to navigate that in a healthy way, so our children still know that we're family and they can still grow up in a healthy dynamic. And so, yeah, I don't regret it. It's been a journey, but I don't regret it.
Well, thank you. BreYanna, it's been a pleasure just listening to you and listening to your journey. I want to thank you for being on here. You all go check her out on Facebook and Instagram, and we're going to see you next time.